In at number 10, we have got the Carnotaurus, and this creature really did have to be here on the list for me, and there are several reasons why, and the first reason probably comes down to a lot of sheer nostalgia for this creature from all of the old version of Ark. But still, I really enjoy this creature for just its wealth of features as well. Namely, it does have the bleed ability, which barely any carnivores actually have, which doesn't really make sense considering they're carnivores and they rip into creatures. But, you know, hey ho, that's just the way it works. And also, they're pretty small and compact and quite speedy and pretty easy to tame as well, which, again, really does play to their advantage hugely, as, you know, you can easily get around the map and beat other creatures or players in combat situations because you actually have the ability to, you know, move around all over the place. And again, that size really does help. They're kind of a little bit of a stealth creature, although their stomp sounds are aggressively loud, especially considering their size. But, you know, that's fine. You're not really gonna completely use them for that, or really use them at all for that in the matter, but they're just a really easy, convenient, nice carnivore you can get in the early stages of the Ark game, which just really does pack a punch. Next up, we have the Theri, and this creature had to be here for its sheer greatness in resource gathering, and also the fact that it was unlocked at level 69.
Nice.
With this thing, in terms of the resources which it can gather, it's actually fiber, wood, thatch, and any kind of berries, hide, and wood. And fiber is a particular one which I want to talk about, because fiber is such an essential resource for any Ark player. Like, come on. You're going to always need some more fiber. You can get tons and tons of the stuff with this creature, which, again, that hugely does benefit I don't even know anymore. It hugely benefits you, sorry, that's what I meant to say, throughout the whole Ark experience, as fiber can just be gathered so easily with this creature. You never really have to worry about it again, until obviously you have to go out and get some fiber. But the main kind of use for these things on the island, which is not really as widely used on other maps, is for the dragon boss fight. But if the map which you're on has the dragon as one of its bosses, because I know some other maps kind of tie in some bosses together, then get some Theris for that fight, as the dragon is particularly harsh to non-herbivores, and considering this is a herbivore, you know, it works quite well. Just pay attention to the healing of these creatures, as sometimes it can be pretty horrible to do. Sorry, I've got a bit of hiccups at the moment. Compared to just having normal meat, as you need sweet vegetable cake for them to heal really quickly, and that's just very expensive. And now we have the Carcharodontosaurus, and this creature is hugely powerful, which is obviously why it's on this list, and the Giga kind of would have been on this list until this creature came out, as it does whatever the Giga does, or all that the Giga does, not whatever the Giga does. It sounds like I don't really know what the Giga is, and just does it better. It deals more damage than the Giga because, you know, once that blood rage is full, it will deal more damage than the Giga. It has more health because it doesn't have the rage meter. Its stamina is better, and it can actually move a reasonable pace. I don't know anymore. I'm really struggling for words today, which is lovely. But either way, yeah, their pace is pretty quick, especially for a creature of this size. And obviously, if you want to be stupid, you can crank all your levels into stamina if you want. But I wouldn't really recommend doing that, but I guess these things can really run for ages if you do that. Maybe just get a stamina mutation if you're actually looking into all of that. And yeah, these creatures are just, although not the easiest to tame, as there is a little bit of faff involved with the tame methods, they are pretty easy to tame, and once you've got them, they're really extremely powerful creatures, which essentially are just the Giga, but in every way that the Giga's bad, it's better. And they also deal the bleed ability, which is another huge bonus. In at number 7, we have the Baryonyx, and I don't really know where I would be in Ark without this creature here. Like, when you look at this creature, you really see true, like, usefulness in it, I guess you could say, because, you know, it's Baryonyx, it's a really great caving creature. You can really see this creature for what it is, and it's just such a useful one for all kinds of caving on the island. Again, I wouldn't really know where I would be without this creature. Obviously, it can't fit into the cave which holds the artifacts of the Skylord, so if you're going for that one, don't bring a Baryonyx to it, but no creature can really fit into that. You need to crouch at some points of the cave anyway, but I guess with cries you could possibly get one in there, but they're not particularly useful in that given scenario, so I wouldn't really recommend that or too much, because, you know, it's not really going to be that useful, and you could risk just getting the Baryonyx falling into one of those holes that lead to nowhere and losing it forever. And it's also really great now in the water caves as well, because of that spin ability, which in some creatures up to the size of a Megalodon. They're just so versatile in all of their caving uses, and also just combat uses as well. They're great combat creatures. They've got really good melee damage, of course, and their health is pretty good as well. Again, size is perfect for caves because they're really thin and they're not too tall, and also they have pretty nice agility on top of that too. Next up, we have the Maywing, and this is just pretty much the epitome of travel mounts in Ark. This thing, again, really terrible with the words today, but yeah, this thing really does pack a punch in the travel department, if you can even say something packs a punch in something which doesn't really deal a heck of a lot of damage. Its gliding ability just makes it so agile and quick moving across pretty much any map, as they don't need a whole lot of verticality like something such as the Rock Drake to actually move around the map, and I find they're pretty easy to take around some flatter areas of Ark maps, which obviously does play to their benefit, and obviously they can skim across the top of water as well, so you know, if there's any water about, you can just skim over the top of that really quickly with ultimate ease. But obviously they're not just absolute travelling beasts. These creatures also are really great for breeding, as they act as a portable feeding trough, and they can gather berries on top of that too. The only real downside to these things is the animation for the feeding trough just looks a little bit creepy to me. In at number 5, we have the Bloodstalker, and this creature is my favourite underwater tame right now, and I really think it is perfectly balanced for all things Ark, especially in the water. Of course, these things are quick, agile swimmers that can also skim over the top of water as well, which again just plays their benefit, and I have no idea why I didn't actually swim in the water when doing the B-roll for this. I only just skim over the top of it like you'll see there, but I didn't actually go into it, even though I use these things for mainly underwater things, and they essentially act like the awesome Spyglass mod, allowing you to see the aggros of creatures and also where loads of creatures are, which, you know, that's a really nice ability to have, especially in the water where sometimes it might be dark and you can't really see creatures. You can easily spot anything so easily with that ability, and it doesn't just have to be ocean creatures, it can be on the land as well. And also on top of that, these creatures really do have really great travelling abilities just on land as well. They're really great travelling mounts, and you could say they're kind of slightly more useful than the Maywing in a lot of scenarios, especially for underwater travel actually. But the skimming on top of the water is pretty much the same thing, but just for general normal travel, you could say, as you don't really need any verticality, but there is still an essence of verticality involved, which kind of backpedals on my point there. But you can make do without. It's just to kind of, you just need things to grab onto really, which is obviously what changes this from just a normal flyer, but I still think it is a really perfect creature for me. Next up, we have the Reaper, and this creature is just so good in like every way. And although yes, maybe the Reaper Queen has a slightly better second attack than the Reaper King, but this is obviously a Reaper Queen in the B-roll, by the way. Actually, it's not Reaper King, if you couldn't tell. They look pretty similar, but I force tamed a Reaper Queen, so it's technically, this is not really what you're getting, because you know, the tail ability is different, but still the general gist of it is exactly the same. It's kind of the same creature really. Yeah, that was the only thing that could make it in essence any better, but I'm still perfectly fine with it. And obviously with the R Reapers on Gen 2, they really are hugely powerful tames with pretty interesting tame methods as well, which again makes them a really interesting one to me, and I enjoy that about them quite heavily actually, that you can really get a lot of use out of these creatures and also just a lot of experience out of taming one, and it really feels like you've truly achieved something when you tame a Reaper, which can't really be said for some other Ark creatures, especially if you tame it on Operation, as on Gen 2 it's pretty cheesy to do and it doesn't require all too much effort. But if you do have Gen 2 and you think you're taming a Reaper and you've never tamed one before, maybe it's the map to start on. In at number 3, we have the Shadowmane, and this creature has to be here. The Shadowmane is just so densely packed with all kinds of abilities, it just has to make the list. It's just, this is the Shadowmane in essence and in heart. It is such a good creature for all things combat. It's a really good travel mount as well, as it is really fast and agile, which again really does play to it very strongly. And on top of that, it works really well underwater as well. But you know, its name kind of is Lionfish Lion when you look through all the models and you know all of that. It is Lionfish Lion. That is the name of this creature. So you know, you could probably expect this creature to be really great. And it does have the hydration buff, which only it and the Spino share, and it can go invisible. It has the pack buff. It's also a really great boss creature, if I haven't mentioned that already. I don't think I have. And as you can see there, really great in the water. Its only real downside is its tame method, because that thing is an absolute pain, and I wouldn't wish it on even my worst enemies. In at number 2, we have got the Desmodus, and this creature just reeks pure quality. When you think of it, it just has such a high wealth of abilities, and with that Sanguine Elixir, you really do have a creature which has pure greatness within it. And you know, that really does play to this creature being like the perfect art creature. That Sanguine Elixir is an absolute cheat for tames. It's a blood bag farm, allowing you to obviously farm blood bags. It can grapple onto walls like the Tapejara, it can glide like the Snow Owl, and it can even go invisible in the night time as well. Which I couldn't show you because I was in the Wastelands biome extinction. Chose the absolute worst biome, and for some reason the animation kind of glitched later for the gliding ability, which is nice, I guess. But yeah, the Desmodus just reached pure quality, and the tame method is exactly the same as the Bloodstalker. And once you have a Desmodus, taming a Bloodstalker is much easier, as those blood bags are really easy to come by, as you know, you can just farm them with this creature, and it also does a pretty hefty amount of damage, and in PvP scenarios you can pick players off mounts, so really is a great tame. And in at number 1, we have the Deinonychus, and in my opinion, this had to make the number 1 spot. This creature is just like perfect in every way. Its taming method is great, and this thing is heavily packed with abilities. I guess maybe the only thing it could do better is be better in the water, but you know, the fact that this thing can deal bleed damage to bosses really does make it just such a great creature, and its size is really great as well. It could be a great caving mount, as it can fit into pretty much every cave. Its tame method is really easy. You just have to steal its eggs from a nest and then raise those. Nothing crazy, especially compared to the Shadowmane taming method, which is significantly harder. And although, yeah, maybe they could do a little bit of swimming, it's not really their forte, but I wouldn't use them for that in any sense whatsoever. I would use them for bosses, because they can obviously deal bleed damage to bosses and latch onto them and all of that. But they also are really great for travelling, as they don't take full damage, and they can absolutely tread across land so quickly, as obviously I can kind of just parkour around the map. And also they do have the pack buff as well, which makes them even better for combats, just going back to bosses. The fact that these creatures have pack buffs really do make them so much better for all things to do with bosses. Again, just really makes them even better creatures, and you'll see that kind of parkour being used here. As you can say, they kind of just jump across the rocks, and you know, it really does make scaling those taller cliffs not so much of a headache, as you just have to go around them. You can just simply scale them in true fashion. So if you have never already, considering this one in Valguero, which is a free DLC map, tame yourself a Deinonychus, you will not regret it. The top 10 most powerful art creatures. In at number 10 is the Basilisk, and this creature is definitely very well renowned for its damage dealing abilities. And what would you really expect? This is a massive snake which can deal so much damage to so many creatures, and can really ruin any Ark player's day if used effectively. And the only real downside about this thing is its slightly annoying taming method. Slightly is really an underestimate. Very annoying taming method, where you have to use Rock Drake eggs on Arbration, but you can use Magmasaur eggs and Wyvern eggs as well if you want to. Then drop them around it without aggroing it, and then you'll tame yourself one of these things, and that can be an absolute drag, especially if you're using Rock Drakes on Arbration for Rock Drake eggs and you haven't got a Rock Drake yet. That can be a complete drag, but I don't know why you would just get Rock Drake eggs for a Basilisk before even getting a Rock Drake. But in terms of their damage, obviously these things have a very powerful bite, but they also have a torpor dealing ability on top of that too. Next up, we have the Rock Drake, and again with the Arbration theme. And this creature really cannot be missed out in any sense at all in terms of powerful creatures. This thing has an insanely incredible bite, also dealing a wealth of damage compared to its size and transportability ratio. As yes, it is all good having a big, hunking, powerful creature, and actually they are in at the number 1 and number 2 spots, but it is also very important in a creature like this to have the mobility to go around, and its size to damage ratio is absolutely insane, although it definitely is not the most powerful Ark creature. Otherwise this thing would be number 1, but I'm sure you can infer that because this thing is in at number 9. In terms of just its bite though, it deals a lot of damage, but also it does have a great glide ability as well, which no other Ark creature before that really had. And I'm pretty sure it can't do what the Griffin can do and dive onto creatures and deal damage to them, but still its bite, which I keep saying, I feel like a broken record, it just deals so much damage, and it really can't be discounted when it turns in terms of the Rock Drake's abilities. That kind of bite is just what makes this thing so powerful. But what would you expect? That kind of is the main ability that most carnivores have to deal damage. Now, next up, we have the Rex, and this had to be in the list at some point. Realistically, this is one of the best boss creatures, partly because it is allowed into boss arenas, but also it is just a very well balanced creature, meaning it has a good health stat and a good damage stat to go along with that too, which some other creatures like the Spino and the Aloe can't really compete with, especially when it comes with health. The Spino does do a little bit more damage than the Rex, but it doesn't have enough health to keep up with it, which is why, in my opinion, the Rex is a more powerful creature. Although this isn't a video about tanks, otherwise creatures like the Stego would be here, but creatures like the Stego pale in comparison compared to the Rex. This creature is just so buff and beefy, and really what would you expect from a carnivore of this size and with a head and teeth that big? You can tell this thing is going to really pack a punch. But low level ones aren't actually the greatest and can be extremely weedy, especially in the stamina and weight department. So if you are taming a Rex, I would definitely say go over level 100 for your first one, as they really aren't very difficult tames, especially on ASA now, as the babies are really easy to find. But unless a really other random circumstance happens, like a Rex gets trapped, or you just find a baby Rex on ASA, which can simply be tamed by press of a button, always try looking for above level 100 Rexes, as that is going to give you the best results, and it is also meaning that if you do breed those Rexes in future or tame more above level 100s, you're going to have a significantly higher chance of defeating those bosses. Now, the Golem again can't be discounted. This creature is literally a living tank. Although we aren't talking about tanks today, and apart from it being a tank, it also packs an absolute punch when it comes into damage. This thing is insane at dealing any kind of damage to any kind of creature, really. No creature can really stand this creature in terms of buffs against it, and I'm pretty sure no creature really does have a buff against it, apart from those which has a buff against all creatures. That was really an irrelevant point there. But either way, the Golem is an insanely powerful creature, and you can just see how quickly it shreds through this Death Worm. And if you have a Rock Golem, then it is really, really easy to tame a Mantis, as those Death Worms are going to be some of the easiest things to kill. Sadly, you can't really take these things into bosses, at least I don't think you can. But still, in the real world Ark map, just around the map, these things are absolutely insane. And especially if you transfer cryopods onto Scorched Earth, or just make cryopods on Scorched Earth, these things can be a really good Wyvern Trench Destroyer, as they can just kill all the Wyverns in the trench, and then boom, these Wyverns are going to be really, really easy to tame. Next up, we have the Reaper. And this creature, again, is just one of those creatures which has to be on this list for so many reasons. It is a creature of immense power, and it is just absolutely insane how much damage this creature deals, and its taming method is an absolutely amazing one to go on top of that as well. Unless you're on Gen 2, then it is an absolute cheese. But on Operation, it is a real experience to tame yourself a Reaper, and that is something which I really enjoy about this creature. Its taming method, and once it's tamed, there's just such a big journey and sense of progress once tamed one. And also, on top of that, it does deal a hefty amount of damage, although I'm pretty sure it is not allowed into boss arenas. And the Reaper kind of stands with creatures like the Giga in terms of damage, and although they're not as big as a Giga, they definitely pack punch like the Giga does, although not quite as much, but their size is a lot smaller as well, and they are significantly more mobile, which the Giga simply doesn't have. In at number 5 is the Rhinognatha, and would you really expect any other creature to take this spot on the list, or even be up in the kind of central part of this list? Obviously, this is one of the newer Ark tames, so I can't really put it in at number 1, as we haven't seen its full potential yet, as it hasn't been used for absolute years, but also it hasn't really been nerfed in any kind of way. And the fact that this thing can pick up Rexes and absolutely decimate bases is really something to be said. These creatures deal an insane amount of damage to anything. Like I said, they can absolutely destroy bases and ruin everyone's life apart from the person riding it. And also on ASA, you'll find an abundance of these things, whereas on ASE, these things are extremely rare. And on ASA, I have had several encounters with these things, and with their wealth of abilities, you can easily pretty much demobile another player on a creature, or just anything which you're trying to kill or take for yourself, and then simply dispose of it as you wish, which is not really anything any other Ark creature has, at least to this extent. And it kind of does make sense for its insane power, considering its really long taming method, which requires a hell of a lot of resources if you want 100% effectiveness, although that is not required to get the absolutely insanity, out of this creature. And a net gun is going to be extremely helpful in taming it, but obviously in ASA at the moment we don't have access to the net gun, so this thing is actually somewhat even more difficult in ASA, especially because there are more of these things lying around, and when taming one or killing one to get the pheromones, you can really get yourself in a pickle if another one comes around. But also in the early game, if you're flying around on your Pteranodon 2 and one of these things faces you, you're going to have the worst time to say goodbye to that Pteranodon. Whereas with Nagi, it might be able to withstand a little bit if it's a low level, but still, these things are absolutely insanely OP, and the taming method kind of roughly follows the Reapers. Next up, we have the Shadowmane, and the reason why I am saying this creature is more powerful is also because it is a lot more useful in some scenarios out there. This thing has the pack buff, it has the hydration buff, and it can even go invisible too, and the list even goes on further than that, but I can't really remember what other abilities this thing wields. Its main claim to fame obviously being that this thing is allowed in bosses, and like the Deinonychus, it is absolutely insane for that. But in the real world too, this thing can jump to incredible heights, meaning that no Pteranodon is safe in the sky when you have one of these things, and you can just see there how high I actually jumped. It is absolutely insane with the mobility of this creature. Also, it can even charge its damage up over time, and it is really great in the water too. Its only real downside is the fact that its taming method is an absolute slog, and is one of the hardest in the game in my opinion. Speaking of the Deinonychus, in at number 3 is the Deinonychus, and the reason why I think this creature is more powerful than the Shadowmane is pretty much because this thing has all the same buffs as the Shadowmane, but one insane advantage. This thing obviously still has the pack buff. Sadly, it can't go invisible, but its mobility is still extremely high, having no full damage and being able to climb up walls. But the main thing its claim to fame has to be is the fact that this thing can inflict insane amounts of bleed damage. Not sure if the Shadowmane can deal bleed damage. I don't think so, as that creature is allowed into bosses, and this is the only creature which is allowed into bosses which has that bleed damage, and it works on bosses too. And when you have a pack on these things, and then you can just absolutely decimate bosses with these things, it is an absolute cheese for every single boss which you face. And I really can't wait for these things to be in ASA when Valguero comes out, on ASA obviously, but we still have them on ASE to enjoy all of the time. These things are pretty much some of the easiest tames in the game, which is really to their benefit of power as well, especially considering their size. They're pretty much the same size as a raptor, but a raptor cannot face this thing in any sense of damage, health, mobility, any of that. This is essentially just the raptor on absolutely insane steroids, and this creature will not disappoint you in any circumstance. In at number 2 is the Giga, and you can probably tell why these things are now on the list and why this thing is at number 2, and from this you can probably guess what's in number 1 anyway. But in terms of the Giga's abilities, this thing is an absolute hunk when it comes to power. Sadly, when it is tamed, it loses its bleed ability, although it is still a beast of anything damage, and its health is one really to be reckoned with. Killing a wild Giga is significantly harder than killing a tamed one, but still one which is tamed will take an absolutely immense long time to actually kill. Unless you're fighting the Alpha King Titan, then it might have an easier job of killing all of your Gigas, but that's why you assemble an absolute army of those things. And there's only one other creature which you could really use for killing those titans, which is obviously the creature which is in at number 1. And the fact that this creature is in ASA already, although not very useful until Extinction comes out, it is insane that we still have this creature around. Obviously, it was first introduced on the island in 2016, and it was an absolute beast then, and it still is an absolute beast now. Its only real downside is its absolutely abysmal abysmal stamina, also very annoying rage meter, and just general inconvenience. And in at number 1 is the Carcharodontosaurus, which for some reason YouTube chapters always thinks it is a Kronosaurus, and I have no idea what a Kronosaurus is. Maybe it is just a Carcharodontosaurus, but made out of cryopods. Who knows at this point? But the reason why I think this is a more powerful creature than the Giga is mainly because it is a faster creature, it has more mobility, and also when its blood rage is full, it will deal more damage than the Giga, so therefore it is just a more powerful creature. And it doesn't have the rage meter as well, so it effectively has more health too, as the Giga is unusable after that rage meter is full, whereas this thing can go all the way down to 1 HP, and then from there, obviously, this thing is going to die. Sadly, once tamed, you'll have to dismount it, which is a little bit of an annoying one, due to its taming method being very, very different from the Gigas, basically allowing you to feed it dead creatures and then ride it around, and then obviously kill loads of creatures to get it up to 100%. So it's a little bit sad that you get dismounted off of it, but it kind of does make sense. This thing is an absolute beast, and you really should give it a go. But also, just before I do the outro of this video, I know the Titans and the Titanosaur could be very good on this list. The Managama is another one as well, and also just so many other creatures which I have missed on this list, and I know sometimes you have some other opinions on these things, so always leave them down in the comments below. So thank you to my wonderful patrons Ekaterina Puchkova, Karina Thorne, Dominic Masijewski, and Ethan Tapia, who have all supported me through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. If you want to join this list, then go join Patreon or YouTube members, but thanks to all of these guys.